thank you, everyone, and had a very tough act to follow in the graveyard shift. Very excited to be here and kind of getting towards the end. We have a great panel on technology, both what can be done today and prior to the change in government, as well as what will happen once we get the change in government and build out the ecosystem alluded to. So if we could start with maybe discussing some of the elements of what should be done now, are being done now, and what can help the people in Iran prepare for the change to come. I'll hand it off to Lynn.
Well, it's an honor to be here with all of you, Your Highness. Your Highness, thank you for being here with us. We've talked about a lot of these issues over a number of years, and there's good news, and I think there's worrisome news. I'll start with the good news. The good news is Iran is well positioned to participate in the future technologically driven economy. As you just heard by the conversation here, there's a lot of human and natural resources that Iran possesses that could be activated fairly quickly with the right preparation to be able to plug into the evolving ecosystem driven by technology. Now, part of that is also recognizing that if you're going to invest in an uncertain environment, what are you going to invest in? From the perspective of technology, I think the reality is that at the intersection of politics and military and diplomacy and all of these other issues that need to be resolved is technology. How you deploy, how you innovate technology of tomorrow is going to determine of what kind of a country you're going to engineer, literally. Is it going to be a place that creates opportunities for the population? Is it going to be interoperable with the rest of the world? Who are you trying to attract to invest in the country? All of that, all of these decisions have to be thought of and could be decided before the day after. Now's a good time to deliberate on these issues. And the good news, as I said, is that Iran, we discussed this earlier, Iran produces over 300,000 STEM graduates every year. 250,000 or so are engineers. Now, quick math is that that's among the leading countries in the world today. With a little help and a little, freedom, I think that number could even go up and be very attractive, not just for the domestic economy, but to attract investments from other countries in the free world and other investors who are always looking for opportunities. Now, what are they going to invest in? I think, the calculus has to be, what are the critical sectors that are going to drive the economy of tomorrow, especially when it comes to technology? We know that AI and quantum need a lot of power. They need electricity. We know Iran has a nuclear program, that's for sure. So that program should, at the very least, be reconfigured towards civilian use. And I think it could be really, really quickly. And the good news is that once you do that fairly quickly, within a couple of years, I think, maybe even faster, with the right investment and the right exploration of natural resources, you can attract big companies like Google and Microsoft and others to build data centers, to start R&D, to build ecosystems that bridge its interests to the region and beyond. I think the part of the conversation today was about Iran's geographic location, and it's extremely strategic, extremely. Certainly between East and West, but also a lot of transit goes through the area, as everybody knows here. It's commercially plugged in. It presents a lot of opportunities for all sorts of entrepreneurs and all sorts of commercial interests. So the bottom line, that's the good news. The good news is there's a lot to work with, and I think all of those components have to be strategically examined, and preparations need to be made in terms of what that future sovereign wealth fund is going to invest in. What are those key sectors? What are the industries? What can we offer other investors? And I think all of those things are doable. I will end on this note, at least for this question, which is, in order for any of this to succeed, you need confidence. Confidence, and Your Highness, you talk about confidence a lot. Confidence to believe. But it's also confidence from people inside Iran to believe that they can certainly rise above. But also confidence from the outside to believe that they can invest in Iran and that their investments are fairly secure, that they can trust the legal system, that they could trust that their intellectual property will be protected, that all of these things that we take for granted in the West or in the free world, and I shouldn't really say the West, because I think of Japan and Korea and Taiwan, I think those countries too, and they have the similar expectations. So I think it's not enough to have the raw materials to work with. I think the more confidence we could instill both in the population, the young generation, and the people that Iran needs to invest in the future Iran, the more likely the transition will be successful, and the more likely Iran will stand up on its own feet quicker than other examples of countries that were discussed. And I'll pause right there.
Well, thank you. That was a perfect jump to Arian Jun's background, both in terms of having experienced the other options in his personal experience, and then if you want to also touch on just what it takes to build that ecosystem through your more recent experiences.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you, Amir. It's an honor to be here. I think that Shervin and Dara, they touched on these points. Entrepreneurship it runs through our blood, and I think one of the things also that makes great entrepreneurs is also creativity, and Iranians are incredibly creative people. If you listen at the music that's coming out of Iran today, you see the movies that come out. There's a huge wealth of creative talent there. Insofar as technical talent, we've seen the success that Iranian entrepreneurs have had in tech in the US, in UK, and other parts of the world. Sadly, even though we've got incredible academic institutions in Iran today, they've been stifled by this isolation. And it actually amazes me how these companies like Digicala and Snap and Cafe Bazaar and many other companies, despite the incredible difficulties, have managed to build successful tech businesses within Iran, which gives me a lot of hope that if you open that up and connect them to the global system, especially with the wealth of experience, capital, knowledge that we have within the diaspora and beyond, I actually think that Iran can become an exporter of solutions, not just commodities, as we spoke before. And we can stop that brain drain once you connect the ecosystem. You look at successful ecosystems like Tel Aviv, like Bangalore. I mean, even London. London has become the second tech hub in the world. And that was driven by programs like Tech Nation. One of my partners created that for the UK government. It led inbound investment to the UK going from 2 billion to over 15 billion a year. And that can be done very quickly in Iran and keep the brain drain. I mean, today, the minute any talented engineer or whatever can get a visa to go abroad, they go abroad. The startups struggle to keep people, in the companies, because the minute they can go away, they leave, and these other countries get the benefit of that. But I think it's about connecting ecosystems. Iran has already a great ecosystem, great academic institutions, Zarif, Sharif University, and as Shervin said, I think Iran can really leapfrog and become one of the leading global hubs in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that in terms of Iranian entrepreneurs and innovators being interconnected with other neighbors and other countries. I've seen conversations recently between Ukrainian entrepreneurs and American investors, and that is not something that's to be taken for granted, because even though creativity is inherent in being limited and being suppressed, where you're forced to come up with interesting solutions, there's a big gap between coming up with an interesting idea and that idea being deployable in an advanced marketplace like the United States or Europe or anywhere else. And that is where I think investment can help to bring those companies along and give them the opportunity to mature their ideas. And I think a lot of people talk about industrial policy. Industrial policy is a two-edged sword here in the United States. But I think used strategically, where government stakes out some ground and some investment, strategic investment that is ideally positioned to incentivize private sector investment. I do think that there's an opportunity for industrial policy in the future democratic Iran to be able to take some of its budget and earmark it for the kinds of investments that are going to incentivize research and development, bringing key industries to the country, kickstarting the kinds of opportunities that perhaps are still nascent in the country. But I would caution not to take for granted that anything can happen overnight. I think it's going to take a commitment to invest in a long-term strategy that is thought through, and that is going to engender patience among the investors, which is why I think Diaspora has a huge role to play in that interim period, because Iranians who have an emotional connection to the fate of the country are much more likely to have more tolerance to risk when it comes to investing in a system that is nascent, still trying to get its feet, get its sea legs firm under it. So I do think that Diaspora leadership, visionaries like Shervin, like Dara, and others have an incredibly important role to play in bridging that time between the Islamic Republic collapsing and a future democratic Iran emerging, because it's going to take, a strong stomach to see that period through, and certainly vision and commitment is going to be necessary.
Yeah, I think one of the areas that personally I've had an interesting experience over the past few years working on this is sort of getting into the weeds of the different subcategories of the diaspora, and what holds some people back is, I think, the point several people have alluded to, which is the identity, and what kind of things needed to be developed over the last 45 years in order to, remain sane in the environment they were in. And now I think that it's kind of working through the scarring and coming and being, inspired by people and hearing and seeing specific visions. I think one of the examples that can be, Dr. John Padvar was one of our previous panels was kind of cautious to counterfactuals or hypotheticals about what Iran could have been had it achieved growth over certain periods of time. But since I'm not an economist, or I can speculate a little and say you could easily envision a Iranian Samsung if it just had not been derailed even slightly. You wouldn't have to perform well, you wouldn't have to perform exceptionally, and it would just be at least one Samsung as an example of what could have been. Onto the sort of other side, what are some sort of successes and experiences that you think might lead to more Shervins and getting more people out of the diaspora and active and helping and getting the future kind of going, if you will?
Well, I think that people within the diaspora, they many of the people that I speak to say that if Iran opens up, they would love to go there and invest and help and support. I mean, I think that you'll be amazed by the number of people who put their hand up and say, how can we help? How can we get involved? It's just waiting to happen, you know. And there's so much on the tech side. I think in every field, Iranians have been successful pretty much across the board, but especially in tech. And I think that there's just so much that the Iranian diaspora can help with. I know, I don't know many of them personally, but there are people like Saeed Amidi, Plug and Play, Pear VC, and many other venture capitalists and technologists in Silicon Valley that would be, you know, very willing to support, I think, the Iranian tech ecosystem.
Well, I think the time for putting skin in the game is now, you know, not later. There's always going to be opportunities when the system has worked out all of its kinks. You know, you're going to have a lot of investors investing in that kind of an environment, where I think a lot of the folks in the diaspora, both of Iranian descent and others who see potential in Iran, I think the opportunity to paint the picture of what could be, of credible people making the pitch, and vouching for the stability, or at least some predictability, I think will make a big difference, and I think that process has to take place now. You're going to need to make sure people have jobs the day after. You're going to need to make sure that that the seeds of future ecosystems that we all talked about aren't 5 years down the road, that you can take those hundreds of thousands of engineers and put them to work immediately. You know, we should be able to go to the Googles and Microsofts and others and say, you know, not that we're asking you to put any money in right now, but just, you know, this is a potential down the road that you should be considering somewhere in the back of your mind. And we're going to keep you posted on how things are going. And here's who else is involved. And based on all of the circumstantial signals, I think plant the seeds of future investment, because even though a lot of these folks in the diaspora today say, of course they would come to Iran, you know, when it comes to putting skin in the game, you know, it's not going to be that easy. Now, again, the good news is Iran is not going to be the first country to undergo dramatic change. I was born in the Soviet Union, which was you know, a system that had a lot of engineers too, but very backward and disincentivized innovation. And a lot of smart people ended up leaving and you know, my family came to the United States, others went other places and are now contributing to other economies. But there are also plenty of examples of what foreign governments and foreign private sector interests can do to take advantage of opportunities. And, you know, eventually you had McDonald's coming to Russia. You know, that was, when I was a kid in Russia, that was not possible. You know, having KFC, you know, in Moscow was not something taken for granted. And I think that picture could be painted to investors today, that imagine, you know, I don't know if it's KFC in Tehran, but, you know, certainly I would focus on technology. But imagine saying, hey, Google, you know, you can have 25,000 engineers tomorrow and you can build a data center here, there, and everywhere else, and we can guarantee energy supply for the foreseeable future, why not? It's a lot cheaper than investing somewhere else. And you have interoperability with the region. So I think there's a lot of things that could be done and should be done now. And that is going to require asking people to take a leap of faith. People of goodwill have to take a leap of faith. It doesn't mean that you have to put money on, invest money in the regime today, but you should commit to investing money into a thought-through plan of how the future Iran is going to not just benefit its own people, but benefit your investment. So I think all of those things are real world, they're hard, but they're possible, they've been done before, and there's a way to do them, and I think they all can be done.
I think that goes perfectly into one of the last areas I wanted to explore, which was sort of as we, build a plan and prepare, what are some things that can be done today in order to activate the population within and get them sort of started from here?
Well, going to a non-Iranian to figure this out, I think, look, I am right now, after doing some work on this issue at the State Department and now doing it at the Kroc Institute for Tech Diplomacy, we've given a lot of thought to how this is done, could be done effectively. Because technology knows no borders, and the Iranian people do have access to information, spotty, but still they do have access. Training the Iranian workforce for the jobs of tomorrow has to be part of the solution. That training could be done remotely. It could be done from the United States. It could be done from Europe or anywhere else. The strategic issue involved here is what is Iran as a nation best positioned to contribute to the future technologically driven economy? What are we good at? Are we, we know we could deliver hundreds of thousands of engineers. Great. Let's take advantage of that. We know we have natural resources. Good. Companies all over the world in the tech business are going to need that. We want to ensure our legal structure is functioning in a way that's compatible with the developed world. So that means we're going to need to give some thought to intellectual property and other legal protections to investors. Let's do that work now. And I think, given how much conversation about those things has taken place here in at the conference, I think, we're on the way there. But all of those things could be done remotely. They don't have to be done inside of Iran. They could be served up to Iranian students, to Iranian academics, to Iranian civil society, to the extent that people could be identified. So those things, technologically driven things, could be done from outside of Iran with collaboration of willing participants inside of Iran. And those things have to be built into the plan, into the transition plan, into the plan of, what is the economic plan, what is the economic security plan, and what are we going to pitch to the international community to be able to be recognized first and foremost, and then be fully integrated into the economies. And I think, people, in government say economic security is national security. I think the same is true here. The more that Iran of tomorrow can display that it can provide economic value, not just to its own people, but to its neighbors and the rest of the world, the faster and the more likely Iranian nation will be recognized, be respected, and be able to establish or reestablish its own sovereignty among other international partners. And to the extent that, training young people in technologies of tomorrow that could be done with, very modest investments, I think it's a no-brainer. Same with venture capitalists. I think it's just a question of, let's help us identify what you would invest money on. Here's what Iran has to offer. And then build a plan around it. So this sounds common sense, but it takes follow through to achieve it. And I'll pause there. What do you think?
No, I think, one of the main issues that they have today is connectivity, If there's a way to, bring them Starlink or whatever so that the internet doesn't go down the whole time, I think that would help not only Iranian entrepreneurs, but I think it would help a lot of the causes that we've been talking about all day today, progress them.
Just one thought on top of that. Just one thought. I think you will see Starlink, there's a lot of conversation with Starlink during the protests and connectivity. That is under the conditions today, where the regime, is working against the people. In a situation where the government of Iran is representative of the people and responsive to human rights and respects the rule of law, I think you're not going to have this very difficult, painful conversation with tech companies or any other companies on the benefits of coming to Iran. It's just a question of practicality at that point. But that's the good news, because reliable internet is going to be less of a problem in a democratic Iran, I suspect, because you're going to have a lot of people investing in it. And why should a government that is responsive to the needs of its people shut down the internet? I don't know whether this was discussed, but, and maybe this is beyond the lane of this conversation, but there are a few things that are absolutely necessary for a successful transition. And the first thing, considering the last 46 years in Iran, is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, tolerance of opposing points of view. The future democratic government of Iran can prove that the country has turned the page on day one by allowing opposing views to be aired without fear of being jailed. Or disappeared, or even worse. Now that is going to send a very powerful signal, not just, well, first of all, to the people of Iran, who are going to be empowered to be creative, to say unpopular things or controversial things within, we're talking about well-meaning people in good faith. But also is going to send the right signal to the free world, that this is not the Iran of the mullahs. This is the Iran that respects people, that has the same values that we have. And we can do business with that. And that's kind of the road to success.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to stop. Thank you, everyone. And, oh, sorry. One.
Thank you. One quick question. Len, remember when we were in Tel Aviv a couple years ago, one of the issues that was on my mind was trying to address the water crisis in Iran and what we have to look forward. In what aspect does technology that is currently being applied, at least in Israel proper, but what kind of technology will assist our means of addressing the water crisis? We're working with our water experts, but I think one of the questions that will, of course, perhaps aid that would be the application of existing technologies and know-how, whether it's from agricultural to water management. Would you like to comment on that as well, please?
It would be my pleasure. And I was honored to accompany you in Israel a couple of years ago. And I think the answer is there are countries that do this very well right now. They have solved this issue, Israel being one of them, certainly United States. I think that if the right signals are sent to those that have that kind of technology quickly, even as quickly as possible, not even waiting for the day after, I think you will find tremendous investment immediately in both bringing the kind of technology that Iran is going to need, but also training Iranians on adopting those technologies and even inventing technologies that are more appropriate for the Iranian land than Israeli or American land. But the good news is it's not a matter of technology, because technology exists, and probably in the span of one season, you can go from the current situation to a situation where you don't even have to worry about this issue. Or not, the people will see a dramatic difference. Of course, it'll also provide jobs. It'll also give farmers something to imagine that they could do that they haven't been able to do. So I think that could be done very quickly, and not just in farming, not just in agriculture, and not just water related. I think you will see a lot of experts have an interest in helping Iran get on its feet and reinvent itself. And I know Cyrus was mentioned here at least once. And I do believe that the future of Iran is rooted in the thousands of years of history inspired by Cyrus the Great and exemplified by all of the innovation that Iran has produced and the Iranian people have produced before 1979 and will again as soon as they're given an opportunity to do so. And the second that that happens, you will have a flood of willing allies who come and help, and because they understand the potential that exists within the country, both practically speaking, but also strategically speaking. When I worked at the State Department, we all understood that if you want to reinvent the region, you have to solve what's going on in Iran. I think that goes beyond the region at this point. Iran could literally provide such an influx of knowledge, expertise, creativity, innovation, that it will affect much farther than just the Middle East. And I think that is what's so exciting about that untapped or largely untapped potential of 80 million people strategically located in a very important place in the world, that it's worth going through this painful period of trying to figure out how best to position the country, because the payoff is going to last hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I think that makes me optimistic. I'm happy to take other questions.
I would ask this question from Mr. Khodorkovsky, but he did not have time. And this question is for Mr. Shervin, if you have an answer, or any of you on the panel. I feel, sitting here, I feel like we're skipping a step. I feel like, yes, there are opportunities once that we get there. We all are working toward getting there, but we have to get there first. And what we heard is that people like Mr. Khodorkovsky, his friends, his family, his amazing and smart and skilled and wealthy friends need to ask themselves, in my opinion, what can I do now for my country before I can ask my country what my country can do for me? And no, I'm not Democrat or Republican. In fact, I'm independent, but what Kennedy said has stuck here for many, many years. So therefore, people who are sitting in that level, who, for one, I'm very proud of them as an Iranian, they need to ask themselves, what can I do for my country at this junction today to get the country to where we want it to get, so we can all benefit from that prosperity and from the potential? If any of you have an answer or a suggestion, I have never had access to that kind of people. Today was the first time, and I was hoping I could ask that question, and it came and went very quickly. So I would appreciate if any of you have any comments on that.
I think just to quickly, I might have some of Shervin's answers, which is Dara's cousins are actually working. They were mentioned. The Partovi brothers were have been for years working on code.org, which is one of the initiatives to teach everybody how to code. And I think in December they announced an effort to make it accessible in Iran in Farsi. So that's one tangible example that goes right with Lens. And I think, again, we need more young people and the ideas, and that's the challenge, is some of the ideas of the problems. One of the first panels we had, you have to first know the problem set that you're trying to solve for. And so getting those problems, obviously we have experts in different domains and we're starting to aggregate those and map the solutions for them. But you know, most of them are sort of take an existing technology or solution and apply it, and then getting to the more, in my view, sort of localized or unique problems for this, which in my view is the cultural, some of the elements touched upon in the healthcare, which is the getting people to put skin in the game. That to me is the largest challenge. And I think there's, you know, momentum and other things that contribute, and a lot of the things Len alluded to, which are, you know, showing the caliber of people involved and the effort, and it's starting to build momentum. And I think first speaker was Said, which is obviously one of the overhangs is the impending deal discussions, and I think you know, I'll defer to Dr. Raseminejad as the expert and say I think we just keep going and work through, and I think there's good momentum built and we can go from here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we're out of time. Thank you everyone for